Hi, this is Brass Check, and this is a story we really didn't want to get into, but because the news media, up, down, left, right, you just, no matter what, whatever spectrum they're on, are all missing the point on this Jeffrey Epstein story. I guess we got to step in and make some sense of it. Where to begin? Where to begin? Well, obviously, and this is an obvious thing, first of all, that I think is not new. Obviously, this guy is very well protected. So the question is, why is he very well protected? Well, there was some document way back when that said there was some intelligence involvement here, and therefore the prosecution had to back off. All right, that should be highlighted and trumpeted everywhere. Instead, it's sort of hidden in dark corners, and nobody's repeating it. But if you just Google that, you'll see that there was such a statement made 10 years ago in relation to this case. But that shouldn't be a surprise. I mean, the fact that this guy skated, he's obviously wired. Now, the mistake people are making is thinking that he's the ringleader. He's certainly a bad guy. He's certainly an operative. He's certainly doing a lot of stuff. I don't think he's the ringleader, and I'll explain that why in a second. Let's talk about this. Billionaire hedge fund manager. Well, I called bullshit on that weeks ago. I mean, that's just nonsense. This guy's not a billionaire, and he was never a hedge fund manager. The New York Times finally got their head out of their ass and started asking questions about that so-called fact that they've been reporting forever about this guy. Nobody in the financial industry believes that he's a hedge fund manager, and nobody believes he's a billionaire. Nobody that knows anything. So why it took so long for the New York Times to ask the question, I don't know, but they're idiots, and there's no surprise there. So this guy is not a billionaire, and he's not a hedge fund manager, and he didn't make his money managing the fortunes of billionaires. Okay, that's a cover. That's a cover story. So why does he need a cover story? He needs a cover story because he's doing something else. Okay? You have to explain his mansions. You have to explain his private jets. You have to explain his island. And so the simplest way to do that was to declare that he was a hedge fund manager, a billionaire who specialized in working with billionaires only. And that was good enough for the New York Times and the Washington Post and the CNN and all the other idiots. But no one with 2 cents of education about these matters believed that for 1 second. But anyway, so why did he need all these things? And since he didn't come up with the money for them, who gave them to him? Okay. Well, we know that the house that he lived in New York City was originally bought by Leslie Wexner, who's the founder of The Limited, which is, I don't know, that big clothing company. I think they're the Gap and Victoria's Secret and all that. And, everybody, who in the media who's asking questions, barely conscious, are asking, why was Jeffrey Epstein such good friends with the upstanding Leslie Wexner? What possible connection did these guys have to each other? Well, you have to look at other connections that Leslie Wexner has. And one of his business connections was a guy named Edward DeBartolo. They're both from Ohio. When DeBartolo was alive, they were the 2 richest men in Ohio. And they're both in similar businesses. DeBartolo was the biggest developer of shopping malls in the United States. Wexner is the guy who made his fortune by creating stores to go into shopping malls. So they're related in that way, but they're related in much more closely than that. They partnered together to DeBartolo to attempt and Wexner to attempt to buy a big shopping mall. And you can Google that and do your own homework on that. It's not a state secret unless you're a New York Times reporter. Why is that significant? Because Edward DeBartolo was a mobbed-up dude, like a seriously mobbed-up dude, like a massively mobbed-up dude. There is one analyst that believes that he is the guy that inherited the mantle of Meyer Lansky as the mob's #1 money launderer. Okay, and if you think about it, you have this guy in Ohio, and all of a sudden he's got endless unlimited funds to be developing shopping malls all over America. Where did the money come from? Well, we have an article that we published a long time ago that we took from a book on corruption in the NFL, and DeBarlow is an NFL team owner, and this author went into great detail about DeBarlow's many very serious mob connections. So we've got a major money launderer who happens to be a business partner of Wexner. And, you know, whenever you see a company like that expand that fast, you got to ask, where's the money coming from? You know, is it coming from, you know, Chase Manhattan Bank? The money's coming from somewhere. And the fact that those two guys knew each other, did business together, and DeBarlow is obviously a mobster, is kind of indicative of some kind of relationship. So now all of a sudden, little Jeffrey Epstein makes a lot more sense. If you're going to launder money, you need a front guy to sort of run the shop, right? So let's look at it this way. If I'm laundering money through an ice cream parlor, okay, I'm not going to be in there running the ice cream parlor. I'm going to get somebody to stand there and run it for me. And then I'm going to tell the world what an amazingly successful ice cream parlor it is, as I funnel the money out the back door and launder it into, you know, something else. So it looks pretty clear that Epstein is, you know, only 2 steps removed from one of the biggest money launderers of the modern age, and that would be Edward DeBarlo through Wexner. So all of a sudden, the bullshit story about him being a billionaire and him being a hedge fund manager, and he only deals with billionaires. Of course, he only had one client, Leslie Wexner. All right. So it looks to me that, among other things, they needed a place, they needed a person, a face, to circulate all this money through with some kind of plausible story. Plausible if you're a New York Times reporter, i.e. an idiot. All right, so what else was going on? Well, it's an old practice in intelligence work to commit sexual blackmail. I mean, this is the oldest thing in the universe. This is like not even new by any stretch of the imagination. So in addition to being a predator and a monster and a criminal, now, it was all presented as he was doing it for his own fun. Oh, yeah? I'm sure, I guess that is some element of it. But what they were actually doing was aggressively recruiting customers for these goings-on. And who did they recruit? Donald Trump, obviously. Bill Clinton, obviously. That shithead lawyer from Harvard whose name I can't, Dershowitz, obviously. And who knows who else. But believe me, if they got to those guys, they got to many, Prince Andrew. They got to many people in other levels, right? You know, he was only, I don't want to get gross here, but he was only trying the girls out once. Okay, who was using them afterwards? Okay, there were a lot of girls, like apparently hundreds. We don't even know how many. But one woman who was brought into this ring as a young girl and then became a procuress said she personally brought in 75. That's one of the operatives. So we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of girls, and the story was, well, Jeffrey was insatiable, but he always wanted someone new. Well, where did these girls go? What did they do after all this expensive acquisition program? Well, it appears that they became playmates for all kinds of people. Why would you do that? Why would you set up an operation like that to make, because it's fun? It's a lot of work. To make money? There's other ways to make money. No, you do it to entrap people. This is the oldest game in the universe. You don't think every one of those rooms was wired? You don't think there's videos and tapes and everything you can imagine somewhere? So basically, Jeffrey Epstein was a hired hand, very well paid hired hand, but he was. I'm gonna guess. This is only a guess at this point, but I think it's pretty obvious. He was a front man for a huge money laundering operation. And if you look again, he's only one step removed from Edward DeBartolo. There's Jeffrey Epstein, goes straight to Wexner. Obviously, they're well connected, and Wexner and DeBartolo were well connected, both in specific business operations and also in just general ways of doing business. And DeBartolo had his own bank in Florida. It was constantly being looked at as a launderer for drug money. We haven't even gotten to the drug money angle. We're going to get there in a second. For gun running and for all kinds of other things. Now, when you start getting into the drug and gun running business and the sexual blackmail business, you're now also rubbing shoulders with people in the intelligence business. Okay? And this takes us back to the original thing that I started this out with is, 11 years ago, there was a statement made by one of the prosecutors that this had intelligence connections and we had to back off. Okay, so money laundering is very often an intelligence operation. Well, so is sexual blackmail. In fact, that is an intelligence operation. Those are the people that get involved in that in a big way, in a big organized way. So that's what we're looking at here. We're not looking at one, lone mastermind dirtbag. We're looking at an operation that was probably undoubtedly laundering money, that was probably undoubtedly involved in sexual blackmail. But there's another thing that we need to look at. Why was he on an island? And it was an island in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Do you realize how convenient that is for the drug business? There's no customs and immigration on Jeffrey Epstein's private island. And someone will have to look into this. But I think once you get to the Virgin Islands, you're home free. Okay? So kind of handy to have an island in the U.S., to own an island in the U.S. Virgin Islands, isn't it? Right? So there may also be a drug angle here. And watch the New York Times, watch the Washington Post, watch CNN, watch Fox, watch all these stumbling, bumbling idiots who can't even add two and two together. Now, the way I think it works on that side is they just hire idiots. And if the idiots accidentally ask an intelligent question or stumble on something useful, their handlers shoo them away from that. So what we're going to see is, lots and lots of salacious details about the ring and the victims and how the thing operated and all that. And it's all going to be hung on Jeffrey Epstein's neck. And he should be hung from the neck, but that's a whole other issue. And he's going to be the focus. And all this other stuff, all this other obvious stuff, the money laundering, the sexual blackmail, the possibility of drug running. By the way, his girlfriend, Gisela, or whatever her name is, Maxwell, daughter of Robert Maxwell. Who was Robert Maxwell? Well, besides being a epic financial thief and crook, he was also a propaganda tool for Israel. He was a publisher, a newspaper publisher in the UK, massively influential, massively important, and a Mossad operative. Not an agent, not an employee, but Mossad is very good at partnering up with Jewish people, some Jewish people in power, and they're often very happy to protect Israel at all costs, to help Israel at all costs, and so on and so forth. That's just a reality. You can read about it. It's not anti-Semitic. It's how it works. So Robert Maxwell, the financial crook, and the Mossad operative, and the pro-Israel propagandist, died under highly mysterious circumstances when his financial scamming finally came to light. Now, did he kill himself? Did somebody push him? That's never been answered. But he died under mysterious circumstances. He was a crook, and he was in bed with the Israeli, intelligence community. Okay? So, question. How was it that his daughter, who was an adult when he died, she was in her 30s, and she was running a business for him, so she wasn't, some ditz, some ditz socialite. She was in the trenches with him. How did she happen to find this guy, Jeffrey Epstein? How did they happen to hook up? And there's one other piece of the puzzle that you'll never see in the idiot New York Times or any of these other idiot publications. She ran a charity. And the charity was about saving the oceans. And you can look this up on your own and do your own research, and you'll find her website. And if you have any nose at all, you'll realize that the website is a complete public relations company manufactured pile of bullshit. Yeah, maybe she liked to go to sea, maybe she liked to scuba dive. Big deal. So what was the purpose of creating that, other than to give a poor little rich girl some justification for her existence? And by the way, you can see her TED Talk. TED still has her talk up, talking about saving the dolphins and the whales and the turtles, which we should do, by the way. But talking about all that, there's no note underneath her TED Talk, right? That she's a sketchy individual. Nothing there. They'll do that for everybody else. If you talk about curing cancer or any of these other things, then they have to put a bar, a sidebar. Well, we don't know who this person is, and she's not talking real science. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent there. But anyway, if you are at the head of an international oceans, oh, by the way, that charity, completely connected to the Clinton Foundation. Right? They're buddies. Go to the Clinton Foundation right now. If they haven't taken it off as of July 12th, check it out. They're still connected. All right? So why, what's the use of having this big facade besides some kind of ego boost for the woman in question and some cover for her life? Well, if you operate a Save the Ocean charity, wouldn't that give you boats? Right? Wouldn't that allow you to come in and out of ports all over the world with minimal supervision? I mean, a Save the Ocean charity run by a humanitarian is not likely to be ferrying kidnapped girls and/or drugs to a private island in the fucking U.S. Virgin Islands, are they? I mean, do you see how stupid these reporters are, that they can't put this together themselves? I mean, what are they drinking fluoride for breakfast? I mean, what is wrong with them? I'm running businesses here. I'm doing 10,000 things, and I can see through this in my spare time with both hands tied behind my back. I don't get it, but I do get it. The purpose of the New York Times and the Washington Post and CNN and Fox and all these other bullshit news outlets is not to report the news. It's to control the news, and this is a controlled story. And yes, it has gotten away from them a little bit. Epstein is in jail. His face is going to be in the news. People are going to be asking questions, but they're going to fill the space with all the salacious details about the sex part of it, and everything else is going to fade away into the ozone there. So, someone should start a death pool on Jeffrey Epstein. Maybe he'll live out a long life. He better keep his mouth shut, I'll tell you that, because I think if there's any sign that he's going to talk, that's the time to start placing bets that he won't be long for this world. So it'll be very interesting. It'll be very interesting. Will they put him in one of these semi-comfortable white-collar prisons with special privileges? He might accept that. Is he going to accept hard time? Is he going to accept a lifetime in jail? I mean, he should. I mean, he's kind of on the road to basically prison for the rest of his life, right? I mean, he's in his 60s. He should be getting at least 20 years or more. That's it. He's done. If they make him comfortable, he might tolerate it. If they don't make him comfortable, he might think about talking. I have a feeling he's a good soldier, and he's not going to talk. But if he ever does talk, this guy's dead. And once he's dead, it's all over, because then the story will be, oh, that madman Jeffrey Epstein with his private boats and his private island and his private planes and his Maxwell girlfriend and his, all his sexcapades and his, well, we don't really know what happened with Clinton and Trump and Dershowitz and all those people, but it looks a little bad, but who knows, he's dead now. So that's a good possibility of how this is going to play out. And, my disgust for the mainstream news media, just as deep and broad as it is, just grows every day. These guys couldn't find their ass with both hands. So now 99 times or 99,000 times more about what's going on with the this is, by the way, this is a headline story. This is the news, right? This is the news. There's going to be 100,000 people reporting on this, and they're all going to miss the main point, which is this thing is not what it appears to be. You're looking at an elephant, and you're looking at the tail of the elephant and saying, oh well, I guess it's a snake. No, it's a freaking elephant, and they're going to do what they do best, which is to manage not to see the elephant and to convince you that the little curly, twirly tail at the end of the elephant is the whole beast. It's not the whole beast. This is a much, much bigger thing, and it would be obvious to anybody who takes 2 minutes to look at all the pieces.